Okay, hello. So this is my October 2025 reading vlog for The Adventure in Aeldia. So if you don't know, The Adventure in Aeldia is part of a bigger readathon called the Magical Readathon, but The Adventure in Aeldia itself is you have a who is going on this adventure through the world, which is called Aeldia, and you have a reading prompt for each month that depends on which path you took. So I actually have two characters. I have Miriam and Rafaela, so that means I have two prompts every month. So my current prompts are try to get through the gate to Dark Meadow, which is a place, and the prompt for that is read a debut book, and the other prompt is play with water pixies, and the prompt for that is to read a book with foiling on the cover. So I just started Ring of Solomon by Aiden Polydorus today. It is October 5th, and this I'm reading for the second prompt. Now, I don't know if this actually is foiling the cover, but I basically only read ebooks or and when I do read physical books, they're like either secondhand or from the physical library, so I don't really have any option for books with foiling the cover, and the title on this is gold, so I decided that gold or silver would be good enough, and the title of this is gold. So Ring of Solomon is a middle grade book about this kid who finds a magical ring, and it turns out that it belongs to Ashmedai, the king of Shadim, demons in Jewish mythology. I am really enjoying this. This is kind of a cross between Percy Jackson and a book called Harshata, which kind of has a similar premise, though that one's in Hebrew. And yeah, I was kind of nervous about this because I was like, well, I already know all of these mythology, all of these legends, so will I be bored? But I am not. I'm finding it that the author, Aiden Polydorus, is really good at weaving in these legends in a very funny way, so it doesn't feel like someone's just telling it to me over again. And he even has like little Easter eggs, well, Easter eggs kind of weird for such a Jewish book, but little Easter eggs of, oh, he's not explaining that directly, but yeah, I know that. Or, like, at the very, very beginning, how this kid even gets this ring is an Easter egg for the folktale of Yosef Mokil Shabbat, which is not a legend, it's a folktale, as I said, so it's probably not going to appear actually in the story, but it's just a little Easter egg. I'm liking it so much. So our main character, his mom is Jewish, so he's Jewish, his dad is not, and he wants to use this ring to fight against this bully at his school. And as I said, so far I'm really enjoying it. I find a lot of the times when I read or see stuff from the perspective of someone like this kid who, to clarify, I'm religious Jew. I grew up always in a Jewish community. And this kid, as I said, is not religious. He is not living at all in a Jewish community. I don't think there are any other Jews at all where he lives. And usually when I read a book or see a TV show with this kind of character who may have only one Jewish parent, but in general did not grow up religious, does not know a lot about Judaism, I feel very disconnected from them. And in this case, it's not the same. I do feel connected to this character. I do feel that he's part of my nation. I think that maybe the part of the reason is that those characters are often made for non-Jews. And while this book is written in such a way that non-Jews at the age is aimed at, yes, this is a middle grade book. So 10, 11-year-olds can read this and understand what is going on and relate to our main character. It's a very Jewish book at the same time. Our character, despite being non-religious and kind of disconnected from his culture, he's still very Jewish, and he still has a very deep connection to his culture. That's what I mean by when I'm saying he's very Jewish. And so, yeah, I really like that. It's written in a very funny way, which I didn't expect, because the other book I read by this author, which I loved, I read in August, The City Beautiful, it is not funny at all. And this one is very funny, which, like I said, I didn't expect. So and I'm I think Ada Polidorus is amazing. He writes so well. So yeah. Hello, it is October 8th, and today I got to page 131 of Ring of Solomon. So, one thing I want to say is that I have a fear that was relieved, which is in the summary, something was written. I was like, I would hate that if that happened, but I trust Aiden Polydorus from the other book I read of his for it not to happen, and I think the publishers made a mistake. So, and it's a really good thing I read The City Beautiful before I heard of Ring of Solomon, because otherwise I wouldn't have trusted Ada Polydorus at all from the summary. Because basically the summary says that our main character, Zach, summons Ashmedai, the king of demons, and that Ashmedai, and he thinks it's all great, but Ashmedai wants to bring about the end of the world. And I was like, that's not Jewish, right? That's not who Ashmedai is. And then in the book, it turned out that I was right. Ashmedai is not the person trying to bring about the end of the world. It is this subset of the Spanish Inquisition. So I am very happy about that. And so far, I am enjoying the book. Like, I don't think there's anything, like, particularly special in the book itself. I don't think, like, I'm enjoying, like, the plot is fun. It's got a nice, I am really enjoying the balance of humor and, like, the utter despair of the world. I think it's very much reminding me of Percy Jackson in that way, even though the humor is quite different. But just, like, our main character is he's a very sarcastic kind of guy, but he's also a guy who sees humor in a lot of situations. And at the same time, he's suddenly in this, like, horrible situation where his world has turned topsy-turvy and he just doesn't know what to do, kind of. And I think the author is doing a very good job. That's my favorite thing about the book, the balance of the humor with the actual awful plot that is happening in the book, which, if you heard me complain so much about A Sorceress Comes to Call and how much I thought the humor and the horror didn't work together, I think you'd be really weirded out. But I don't know, this book just, it works here. I think because we're acknowledging through the humor, and A Sorceress Comes to Call, the humor and the horror were separate. In this story, we're acknowledging through the humor the horror of what is happening. Like, the humor, because the humor is from the main character through his eyes, we're seeing everything through his eyes, the humor is intrinsically connected to what's happening in the world. So when things are going great for him, which basically has not happened in the story once, but when things are going better for him than they are now, because right now things are terrible, we see the humor in a different light than we do when things get worse. And also, actually, right now, at the scene that I'm in right now, there isn't any humor, which makes sense because the scene right now, he is trying to figure out, basically, he's in a situation where this monster is trying to eat him, basically. So I think maybe the monster isn't trying to eat him, but I'm not sure. But anyways, and he's trying to survive. So, like, he doesn't have time for humor. And that's what I'm saying. He's like, the humor in here is just working so well for me, is what I'm saying. And another thing I'm really liking that is very unique to this book, two things actually. One, the money issue, something that has always annoyed me. As a kid who did not have a lot of money, did not have a huge allowance, and none of my friends had a huge allowance either, is how in middle grade books, kids will just, like, be spending money like this. Like, not in every middle grade book, but there are many middle grade books where, like, the kids will be like, oh, I don't have that much money, I'm just a kid, and then they'll be spending money like this. And in this book, there was one mistake with the money. The author calculated something wrong, but it was the author calculating something wrong, okay? Which otherwise I would be annoyed at. But the fact that this kid genuinely has an amount of money that a 12-year-old would have and has to figure out other ways to do things when he doesn't have the money is good enough for me to ignore that mistake in the calculation. And the other thing that is happening here is, I mentioned this before too, but it's happened more so, and I really like it. The everything that is happening here, all this magical stuff, it's not only on the main character. It's not even only on the main character and his best friend. We're getting more people involved. And it just feels to me like so much more making sense than in a lot of books where it's just like when it's just the main character, or even when it's just the main character and his best friend. Like, I just think that at a certain point that doesn't make sense. So I really like it that they're getting other people involved. And I'm really also interested to see what is going to happen with Ashmedai. And because we definitely have like this mystery, we know Ashmedai is keeping secrets from us, which makes sense. And there's this connection to all this stuff. And Ashmedai himself, also he's obviously been existing. I can't say living because he's a shed, but he's been existing since the beginning of the world. So he is and now he's in this human form, which he can't really leave. So his memories are kind of not all there, which is a trope I love. When you have this character who, for whatever reason, is extremely powerful, but has lived for a long time, but is now stuck in a human form, and they're stuck with like human memory, so they can't remember things as well as they would have in their powerful form. I love that. That's like, that trope just works for me so well. Like, it gives a good reason why we're not getting all the answers right away, but also it's really fun because obviously that character is going to be super frustrated, and it gives more characterization to that character. How do they deal with this frustration? How do they deal with the fact that they don't know the secrets? And also what secrets do they know that they're keeping from us and they're just pretending not to know? I love that trope. So that trope is taking place in here. However, Ashmedai is gone for right now, and I want him back. I want his character to come back here. Right now I'm in an action scene, as I said, and honestly, I'm not enjoying it that much. I am not finding that. I'm not a person who really loves action scenes in general, and this action scene definitely is boring to me. What can I say? But, like, overall, I think this book, does a lot of things really well while not being like the most special thing in the world. I think it does a lot of things really well, and actually it does a lot of things that other middle grade books don't do as well. But yeah, so this book is like 215 pages. So I really hope that I continue to enjoy it, because like you get to a point sometimes where it's like a book that you know is going to be special to you, and you're like, what if I end up hating it? Especially when there are things you don't like, which for me is the action scenes, which I find boring. Oh my god, there was this one scene that was so funny in here, where he finds a challah knife, where he's trying to he knows he's going to have to fight against these monsters. And so he's looking through his mom's Judaica, and he finds a challah knife, except, as I said, they're not, like, really connected to Judaism in any way. They are, but they're not. I don't know how to explain it. But anyways, he finds a challah knife, and he's like, oh, it's super serrated, it looks super sharp, and it's longer than my forearm. And then it says in it these weird Hebrew words. Well, I don't know what they say. and then it literally writes in the book that Shabbat Kodesh, Holy Sabbath, basically. And it's so funny to me. And I do not know how I feel about it sometimes, when I also don't know how I feel about it in this book, when there's like a joke that's just a joke to some people who are reading it, because obviously I know what a challah knife is, and yeah, challah knives are longer I know that challah knives are longer than your forearm, and are serrated, but are really not sharp at all, and can barely cut black bread. They're made for challah, which is a super, super soft bread. And so I find it very funny, but I never know how I feel about it when there's a joke that I know that I understand, but a lot of people are not going to understand. I don't know why I feel weird about it, but I always feel weird about it. But anyways, that's all for today. I should really get going to bed, though I do not know if I'm going to be able to fall asleep. I might do some other stuff then. Hey, good morning. It is now the 10th of October, and I finished Ring of Solomon this morning. And by this morning, I mean 1:30 in the morning, so is that last night or this morning? Up to you to decide. And I do actually have some negative things to say about it. Some are more nitpicky, some are more real. So let's start with the more nitpicky one, but actually still really bothers me, is that one of the people that finds out about all this shit going down is our main character's best friend cousin, who is in high school. And she can drive, so I don't know what the driving rules are in California. I know that every state in the United States has a different law about how old you have to be to drive, but I assume it's around 16, 17, right? And so she can drive, and that's great. And if our main character had just been like, oh yes, we have someone who can drive us places, but it's not an adult, I would have been great. But he keeps on like being like, oh, she's a high schooler, finally we have a high schooler to help us. And that just does not fit with what I remember from being in middle school and what I see in the middle schoolers that I've taught. They do not admire high schoolers, mainly because middle schoolers do not admire anything. But yeah, definitely not people just because they're old. Because they're old and can do cool tricks, yes. But Carmen, but he's specifically not, he's just admiring her for being a high schooler, and that bothered me. Now, the main thing that bothered me was this book was not long enough. As I said, it was 215 pages. It was actually 213. The last, even shorter, it was like 211. We had acknowledgments and then like, these are other books the author has written. So yeah, it was like 211, 212 pages, and quite a lot happens, and while the plot actually was fine, I was very surprised because I was like, oh my god, this is 250 pages, we don't have that much left, what's going to happen to the plot in the end? I was really scared the ending was going to be rushed. And the ending actually wasn't rushed, so that's a good thing. However, the characterization began to fall apart. Like, this and the relationships between characters, and specifically between our main character Zach and Ashmedai, it was very obvious that the author wanted to build a relationship between them where Ashmedai is like, is not understanding the concept of friends, and then slowly he and Zach become friends. But because the book was so short, we didn't really get to see that. And it was very obvious because of the lines he was putting there were like stock lines for that kind of situation. And honestly, I'm totally fine with stock lines if they show the relationship actually building. But there was no time to show the relationship actually building, and so it just felt cheap. The other thing that I wanted to complain about is Zach himself. I described his character before, why I was enjoying it, and then he started coming out with lines that didn't fit his character. Like, they're in the beginning, and also at other times, he has these lines that are very sarcastic and snarky, and they really fit his character. Like, asking someone what toothpaste advertisement he stepped out of. But it felt like other times, like, he would just say something because the authors thought it was funny, but didn't really seem to fit with Zach's character. And I wonder, and now my question is, did it really not fit with Zach's character? Or did it fit with Zach's character, but the author didn't give the time in the book to develop Zach's character? I don't know, but either way, that wasn't good. So those are my thoughts specifically on the book, and now for overall thoughts about the book itself. I did enjoy it, and if you're looking for like a Jewish fantasy middle grade, or you're looking, or in general you want to like see stuff like Percy Jackson, I would say go for it. It's nothing special. Like, I'm not saying everyone has to go read this right now. I would love for it to be a book where I say everyone has to go read this right now. I don't think it's an everyone has to go read it right now. I think it's an okay book. The character, and I'm very much a character person. So the fact that the characterization fell apart and the relationship specifically between Zach and Ashmedai fell apart, really lowers the book in my eyes. I know there are people who that wouldn't matter to them half as much. But for me, that really lowers the book in my eyes. So that's why I'm just like, it's an okay book. But on the other hand, as I said, I liked how it was based on Jewish myth, and at the same time, he was doing his own thing. And I know there are people who wouldn't like that, but those people are just complainers, to be honest. I liked how it was. It doesn't have to be in every story, but I really liked how Ashmedai was. He put him more to the good side or whatever, specifically because this is a book that is meant to be widely read. Like, if this was a book aimed at Jews, I don't think I would care either way. I would actually, or I would care, I would want him to be more chaotic, because he is more of a chaos thing in Midrash. But because this is a book aimed to be read also outside of the Jewish community, I do like that he landed more on the good side, also because it fit within the story. It worked really well within the framework of the story, but also because kind of shatters misconceptions, I guess, because non-Jew, like, demon is not even a correct translation of shed. There's just not a direct concept of the word shed in English, and there's honestly not really a direct concept of the word demon in Hebrew. So pushing it more to one side in a language that has its concept, the closest concept we can do is very evil, and saying, oh, it can also be more to the good side, is kind of shattering misconceptions, which is why I like it when it goes to a broader audience. And as I said, I really liked how Zach's connection with the culture. I still don't know how to explain it. He was so Jewish, and it is the anti-Semitism. Like, it is how, not that people are being anti-Semitic towards him, like, also that people are being anti-Semitic towards him, but also, like, the way that you can just see, like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, as a Jew, you're almost brought up to anticipate that bad things are going to happen, and because you've learned so much of the bad things that did happen to your family, to your ancestors, and I'm not happy that's part of the culture, but it is such a huge part of the culture, and I think that that's why, for me, Zach does stand out as even though he doesn't know a lot of things about Judaism, as being culturally Jewish in a very specific way, because he has that vibe. I do not know how to explain it really other than that, but that is the vibe he has, and I really like that even though he's very disconnected from a lot of the culture, he does have the culture, and he is Jewish. And yeah. So yeah, those are my thoughts on this book. That was quite a lot of thoughts on that book. And thank you for watching. And the next book should be Nothing is a Night by John Williams, unless suddenly my hold of Daughter of the Forest by Juliette Marillier comes in. Okay, so two things. One, I thought of another reason why I liked Zach so much in The Ring of Solomon, and that is that while he had stereotypical things about him, they weren't meant to be stereotypical. Like, yeah, he had a lot of curly hair, yeah, he was short and non-athletic, but those were as much part of him as the fact that he liked horror movies, as the fact that he has a little sister, as the fact that he lives in California. You know, like, those are just facts about him. They're not meant to be stereotypes. And then the second thing is that I just started Nothing But the Night by John Williams. I am so far 7% into it. It's a very short book. I believe it's 128 pages, and I am loving it. First of all, it's written so beautifully. Like, it's actually, the way it's written so far is not reminding me so much of Stoner, but as certain short stories by Premi Muhammad. The way it reminds me of the way Premi Muhammad writes, but but honestly, it's so. Or I read Vladimir Nabokov. I read part of Invitation to a Beheading and it was too depressing. I couldn't finish it, but I loved it. That's what it really reminds me of. You're very much in this dream state in both of these books, and obviously something bad is happening, but it's very dreamlike state, and the writing is extremely beautiful, but like confusing at the same time. It's already had like an interesting thing to say in that our main character feels like a stranger to himself. So I do believe this is a dream, but it could not be. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I wouldn't be totally surprised if it was revealed not to be a dream. It just, the only reason it would be surprising is because it would be weird. This is very written and very dreamlike, as like one thing is happening and then another is happening and then another is happening. But our character feels like a stranger to himself, and he feels very disconnected. He feels very disassociated from himself and from his own point of view. Okay, I don't know exactly what time it was then, but now it's 3:04 because we'll start counting my time, I think. And I'm at 15% of the way through. The chapters aren't numbered, but there are chapters. And I was actually wrong. So that really was, the first chapter really was a dream. And then now the second chapter, it, the style of reading change, it's much more similar to Stoner. So really, that style that was very dreamlike was just for the dream, and I mean, he did it amazingly. It really did feel like a dream. But now we are much into, the style does remind me more of Stoner. So we've got this man, our main character, and he's still feeling very apart from himself, very disassociated from himself, but also from the world. And he's obviously very depressed. And he doesn't want to be depressed, but, and like he's trying to do stuff, but he's also like, he doesn't want to do stuff that will make him less depressed. Like, he's trying to do stuff that will make him less depressed, but at the same time he doesn't want to do stuff that will make him less depressed. And yeah, I'm enjoying it. Okay, it's 3:24 and now I'm at 24% of the book. This was very much a setup chapter. And so I don't know if I told you what this book is about, so I'll tell you now. We're following our main character who is very severely traumatized by something to do with his father. From what is said so far, I am guessing that his father killed his mom or something. But on the other hand, it doesn't really make sense because his father is obviously free to do whatever he wants, and there are doctors aware that his trauma has to do with his father, so I'm not sure exactly what it has to do with that. I guess we'll find that out. Okay, so now it's 3:56, two chapters later, and I'm at 39%. And there are definitely two things that are disappointing in this book. And one is the misogyny, which I totally did not expect, because I think that actually that Stoner, my coworker, and I was talking to her a lot about this, how Stoner was actually quite feminist. Especially because while marital rape was, the words weren't said, but was acknowledged as a thing that could happen, and it was published in the early 60s, I believe, which law did not recognize marital rape then. And this definitely has some misogyny in it. That's the first disappointing thing. The second disappointing thing is the homophobia. No homophobia or non-homophobia occurred in Stoner. So I was wondering a bit if it's the narrator, aka John Williams, who is homophobic here, or if it's only our main character, Arthur Maxley. And I think it is both of them, just because the gay guy who appears, he's kind of like the annoying guy who thinks like his problems are worse than everyone else's, except that, see, on the other hand, everybody's problems genuinely are super bad. So, and we're just seeing it from Arthur Maxley's point of view, and Arthur Maxley is so deep into this traumatized, and Arthur Maxley genuinely thinks his problems are the worst. So he finds this guy, whose name is Stafford, super annoying for saying that his problems are bad. But at the same time, I do think that we're supposed to kind of see, like, oh my god, he's complaining that someone said a homophobic slur to him and pushed him out. So I'm not sure. I'm still not sure if we're really supposed to I don't think we're supposed to find him annoying on the level that Arthur Maxley finds him annoying when it comes to him thinking that his problems are the worst, because Arthur Maxley also thinks his problems are the worst. Though definitely we're supposed to find him annoying in some ways. He's definitely kind of a hypocrite, and yeah, I do think we're supposed, like, actually now I'm thinking about it. Interesting. Okay, so we're seeing everything through Arthur Maxley's perspective, right? And he is deeply traumatized. And he is not a nice person because of that, to be quite honest. And so we see him be rude. We see him ignore people. And obviously he just brushes that all away. And we also see him thinking his problems are the worst. And then we have his, not friend, this guy he knows, Stafford Long, and they go for lunch together, and Stafford thinks his problems are the worst. And he's a hypocrite. Arthur is also a hypocrite. And we're seeing this all, and he won't stop talking about something that Arthur tells him to stop talking about, except he thinks Arthur's telling him to stop talking about it for a very different reason than he thinks Arthur doesn't want to lend him some money, and that's why he's telling him to stop talking about it. Arthur wants him to stop talking about it because it's triggering him. So I still don't know. I still don't know if the book itself is homophobic or if it's only Arthur Maxley. I am still leaning towards the book itself is homophobic, but yeah, I'm glad I got to talk to you about this because it really helped me understand some more things that in the scene that just happened in the book. I ended up reading like probably 2 pages more before going to a different book. I'm now at 43%. And yeah, I think one of the things that I was frustrated about 2 things. One, I was really enjoying that first chapter with the very dream-like narrative. And then I thought the whole book was going to be like that. And then it switched. And I was not vibing as much with it. Even though the writing's fine. And also the writing's fine. It reminds me of The Great Gatsby, which I didn't love the writing. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. Yeah, but the other thing I think is that I saw this. I said, oh my god, it's 128 pages. I'm just going to speed through it. And it's not a book you can speed through. So I was trying to speed through. I was getting frustrated when I couldn't speed through it. So I had to put it down, reset my brain, be like, this is not a book that you're going to speed through, and that's okay. So, God's help, we'll get back to it on Sunday. It's October 18th. I finished Nothing But the Night, which also means finishing this vlog for these 2 books. Okay, what do I think of this book? This was an okay book. That's what I think of it. I've read a few and really loved books that follow just one day in the life of a character when we're really following their thoughts. But this one, even though it was that type of book, I found it just okay. I found the writing, sometimes the writing was bland, other times it was very beautiful. And by beautiful, I mean that it was also fitting the vibe. This book has a specific vibe to it, but not only that, I hate it when the writing is beautiful and it's just to have a vibe, but it's not moving anything forward. The vibe in this book was very specific to tell us about this character who's very detached from the world, right? But the flip side of this character being detached from the world, and I think also the flip side of when and how exactly John Williams wrote this book, because he wrote it as a soldier during World War II. And this is a book about trauma. And so Obviously, on one hand, he's writing it very well. On the other hand, because he was so close at the time to his trauma, he couldn't dive in deep enough to make us feel attached to the character despite the character's detachment to the world. That's what I want to say. I think that was a major flaw in this book, that I just felt detached from the character. This book, and this is all that the book is about. We are only with this main character. Okay, that's it. That's the end of this vlog. So have this book, which was I just found okay, and Ring of Solomon, which I really quite enjoyed, even though it did have some flaws.